there everyone, my name's Jan from JB Crafts and I'm back again today with my next tutorial. So we have a really pretty frame that we're going to make today. Now I've actually made this before when I was working on Crafters TV, and I just wanted to have it on my channel here as a reference point. So it's a deconstructed frame where we make each of the side pieces separately and then put them together. So that's going to be the main focus of the video today. But I did mention, if any of you have watched my tutorial on the shabby chic tags, I did mention that I was going to make a piece of home decor to actually display the tags in. So it's been decorated very similarly to how I did the tags, and it's got elements that link the two together. This is actually going to be displayed in my my craft room when it's all finished and fastened together. So the tags I've just got laid in here at the minute. You can see the frame by itself there. It's quite sturdy. I've actually made it out of craft card, which is good weight of cardstock, and it toned in with the colour scheme that I wanted to do. And then I've got elements that match what I had with the tag. So I've used the same pink paper as what we used in the background here. I've used some of the same elements as what we made the collage from here. I've added the clock feature in, which links with the clock on the tags, and so on. You can see the same flowers, sentiments in here, and then I've just added some little alphas onto the frame here just to finish it off. I just felt as if it needed something to finish it off. So I'm going to pop the tags to one side. If you haven't actually seen these, I have got a separate video tutorial showing you how I actually put these together. So that one's worth a watch if you haven't seen it already. And again, this is just one idea of what you can actually do with those tags once they're complete. So it's going to focus today on actually making the frame. So we're going to start off actually making these pieces that make the edges of the frame. Now once you've actually got the idea of how this goes together, you can alter this to make it any size that you want. In the past I've always done square shadow box frames. This one, the tag actually dictated the size, and it is actually an inch taller than it is wide. So the finished sample here actually measures 10.5 inches tall and 9.5 inches wide, and that was just to accommodate the design that I'd put in front. But you could make a little tiny one of these that was just 5 inches square. You could make a tall skinny one, you know, that was just half the width. The world is literally your oyster with this once you understand how this goes together, and it is really simple. So we're going to start making these pieces, and I'll explain as I go along how they can be altered and how I arrived at the sizes that I did. So I'm going to pop that one up there out of the way for a second, and I'm going to bring in my first piece of cardstock. So because my frame is 10.5 inches in height, I need two pieces that are going to be those side. In fact, if I bring this down here at the side, you can see what I'm talking about here. I need two lengths that are going to be the height of my shadow box, my finished shadow box, which was 10.5 inches. Arriving at the width depends on a couple of factors. First of all, it depends on how deep you want your box to be, and mine is 3/4 of an inch on this instance. But you could have it 1 inch deep, you could have it to this, again, so many different ways. And also it depends on the width of the frame, and I settled on 1.25 inches. So if I just draw you very quickly what I mean with this, height is fairly self-explanatory on this one. I need the height of the frame that I'm going to make, but the width, what I tend to do is split it up, and I thought, right, I need a 1.25 inch for the top, I need 3/4 of an inch for the side, and then I need another 1.25 and another 3/4. So 1.25, 3/4, 1.25 and 3/4. So 1.25 and 3/4 make two lots of 2 is 4, hence that width measurement. Now I actually cut it slightly different, or should I say I score it slightly different, and I'll explain why. I've put the scoring measurements on here as well, so if you did want to take a screenshot or pause the video or however, you've got the scoring lines for my 4-inch to create the same dimensions. But when we do the scoring, I'll explain how I've split up those numbers. So the first thing that we're going to do is get the scoreboard. and actually pop some score lines into this particular piece of cardstock. So I've brought out my scoreboard here. I'm going to score on the front side of my craft card, and I prefer to have the lighter colour on the back and the darker shade on the front, but again, there's no right or wrong with this. So what I'm going to do, instead of scoring for the first dimension at 1 1/4, which was the width of the frame itself here, I'm actually going to split that measurement in half, and I'll explain why when we come to fold it together. So half of that would be 5/8 of an inch. So my first score line is going to be at 5/8 of an inch, which is half of my 1 1/4 width. Then I'm going to jump along to 1 3/8, and this gives me my 3/4 inch panel for the depth of the box. Then I'm going to jump the whole 1 1/4 inches this time, which takes me to 2 5/8. Okay, and then I want another 3/4 of an inch for the other side, and that's going to take me to 3 3/8 there. And then the remaining piece on this outside edge is the other half of this one, which is the 5/8 of an inch. So these two together make that other panel. Now if I lift this and see whether you can see the score lines on here. So I've got the equivalent of the top of the frame, the two sides, and then these two will fold underneath to make the bottom width of the frame, and I'll explain a little bit more as I go along. So just pop that down there out of the way. Next thing we need to do is score, is burnish those score lines. So I'm going to take this and just fold along the edge here. And again, need to give it a really good burnish because the craft card is quite a fibrous cardstock, and we do want a nice secure fold on the edges of here. So again, I'm going to take the next one, and each one of these wants a really good burnish with that burnishing tool. And then the other side, and you'll be able to see visually now why I split those measurements. And then that last one in there, and just secure that fold. So what happens is this is going to become the top edge of our frame. We've got the two sides, and then these two will meet underneath here to actually make the base of the frame, and then that's going to stick on to my background piece. So just a little bit that I want to do to this to prepare this ready is I'm going to bring in my double-sided tape here, and I'm going to use the red line because it's really nice and strong for this purpose. And down one of those skinny edges, I'm just going to run a line of red line tape along just before the score line there. So it's not over the score line, it's just coming up to it. And then I can snip that one off, turn it that way, snip it off with my scissors there, just up against the edge. Okay, all right, so we've actually got that one prepared like so, and then I've done a second one of these. So if I bring in the next one, I've actually got this one ready as well, and all I've done here is just use my scissors to snip off like a little right angle from that other skinny edge, so on each side here, and this will just help with the bulk when we come to stick it down, or lessen the bulk. So I've got the two long sides identical with my score lines in there, and I've got some red line tape on ready to stick. I'm going to stick one of them with wet glue, and then I'm going to use the red line tape to help me position it when I close it. Now we're going to do exactly the same, but this time we're going to go an inch shorter. So if you remember, I said the width of my box was 9.5 inches. Okay, so these are going to be the top and bottom edge of the box. So we've got 9.5 inches by the 4 again, and I have scored it at exactly the same points. So if I just bring you this in, you can see here we've got the 5/8 of an inch, 1 3/8, 2 5/8, and 3 3/8. So exactly the same as what we did for those long pieces that we've just prepared. And I've trimmed the bottom edge just to match, again, to help with that bulk. Okay, now I haven't done anything with the top yet because there's just an extra stage that we need to do with this top edge. So put the long ones to one side for a second, and I'm going to bring my scoreboard back in, and on the straight edge, the one that I haven't chipped the corners off, I'm going to bring my scoring tool, and whatever the width of your frame is, and if you remember mine was 1 1/4, we're going to come in 1 1/4 inches and score past that first score line and stop when we reach the second horizontal line. So 1 1/4 inches. So if your frame, for example, was 2 inches wide, you would score here at 2 inches. And then I'm going to do the same at this end. And these are just a guide, a cutting guide. So again, 1 1/4, past the first one, down to the second one there. Okay, and that's all I need that scoreboard for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this in for you so that you can see what I'm actually going to do here. We need to chop a little bit away from this edge. So I'm going to cut down those 2 score lines that we've just created here. I draw this in pen, you'll be able to see it a bit better. And then I tend to just do this by eye with my scissors, but if you're not quite so hot with the lines, we're just going to join up the bottom of that one to the top edge of your next score line. So this is 1, 2, 3 score lines down, and then I'm going to do the same at this side. So the bottom of that little score line we've just made out to the edge of that next score line. So that's the shape that we should end up with. And I'm going to use my scissors then to cut those pieces away. So this edge and this edge we don't actually need. So I'm just going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut down that score line and stop when I get to the second one. And then I tend to prefer to come from this outside edge here and just line up my scissors and snip out that piece so you can see the shape we've got here. And then I'm going to do the same at this side. I'm going to cut down the little score line that we made here, stop when it hits that second horizontal line, and then, as I say, I prefer to come from that corner here and just meet up with the cut, and that's what we should end up with there. Now I'm just going to trim that slightly because I don't want the pen mark on there, because that will show on the finished design. There we go, I think that's okay. So that's what we should end up with. And then now I can add some tape to this. All right, so I'm going to bring in that same double-sided tape and I'm going to put it on the straight side, not the one that we took the corners off. So this one's going to go again flush with that score, not over the score line, just flush with it. Trim that out, and this is then ready to secure when we start putting everything together. And then I've done the same again with the second one. So you want 2 the same. And again, we've got that top piece is going to be the top or bottom of the frame. We've got our 3/4 inch at each side for the depth, and then you've got the 2 pieces that are going to fasten around the back to make the top and the bottom. The angles are going to make those lovely mitered corners on that frame. So we're actually ready now to start popping this together. So you need some kind of back for your frame here, and I didn't have any craft card large enough to fit this particular size, so I've just chosen some brown cardstock which toned in nicely. This won't be seen anyway, so this is just a piece of 12 by 12 that I've cut down, and I've cut it down to that external size, which was 10.5 by 9.5. Now I'm going to bring in my construction glue for this. 2 reasons. It gives me the amount of time I need to actually wriggle things into place, and it dries really, really strong. So when you're making anything like this that's going to be sort of maybe displayed for a while, and you want it to be, you know, a nice strong piece. So I'm going to start with the long sides first and bring those back in, and I'm going to work on these edges that we cut the corners away. And I just want that last little bit that we scored at 5/8 of an inch, and what I'm going to do is going to add my glue all the way down here. Okay, And then just smooth that out a little bit. Now do be careful with this if your skin is sensitive to the glue. I think my skin's got past that. It's had so much muck on it over the years, but I don't want this seeping out. As I say, with it being a nice finished project, I don't want it seeping out onto the design. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use that long edge and we're going to pop it up to the edge of the outside of the frame, and this is where that wet glue comes in handy. So I'm going to pop it down, I'm going to line it up the best I can like so, make sure that it's sort of semi-sealed, and then turn it over and make sure that I've just not got anything protruding from that edge. I want a nice straight seal there. Just give it a second or two. Now you can use your red line tape for this, but I just think that wet glue gives you that little bit of insurance to actually move things around. So you can see we've got a nice angle there, everything in the right place, and that edge is the same length as the piece that we're putting in to make the first side of the frame. So I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to do exactly the same now at this side. So we're going to take piece number 2. We're going to find that edge that we took the corners off, and again I'm going to pop some glue all the way down that glue tab that we created, and I'm going to do the same again. I'm just going to sort of smooth it out so that there's not too much gloopiness going to squeeze out when I actually press this down. Okay, and I'm going to do the same again. So this one, just that little tab is going to line up against the outside edge, and it's going to go all the way along that edge there, making sure that everything's nice and straight along the top and bottom here. And then flip it over and just make sure you've got a nice finish on that outside edge. You shouldn't be able to see any of your craft card along that edge there. And then once you're happy with it, apply a little bit of pressure to seal that in place. Okay, and then the next stage we're going to do the top and the bottom. So I'm going to open those two out slightly, and this is why I just took the corners off here, because the next piece is going to overlap slightly, so it just helps with the bulk. So we're then going to bring in one of our shorter pieces, and again I'm going to work on the side that we took those corners off, and we're going to repeat that same procedure again. So we want the glue on the glue tab that we made. Just smooth it out again to get rid of some of that excess. And then this time, because I'm right-handed, I'm just going to flip mine round to work this way. Make sure I've not got too much surplus glue, and this is going to go from corner to corner on your short side. So this was 9.5, which was the same as that short side. So again, tack it in place. Just pop it over and make sure that everything's looking good on the back. Press it into place, and that one's good to go. And then the last one we're going to pop on this side. So I've got one more piece left, and we're going to do exactly the same again. So once you've actually got the hang of this, it is very repetitive. So glue on that glue tab. Give it a smooth out. And then I'm just going to fix this one in place at the bottom. So again, from corner to corner on my background piece, and you can just see how that wet glue allows you to just move everything into position. And again, just a quick double check to make sure that the outside edge is really nice and neat. You should be able to just feel the score line just against it there. And once you're happy, apply that little bit of pressure. Okay, and that's sort of the hard work done now. So what's going to happen next is these are going to fit inside like so. I'll show you how to stick all this down in a second, and then where we cut away that angle, it's allowing us to mitre that top and bottom edge, and you get a really nice looking frame. So you can see there. Now, because my background card was quite a thin cardstock, I've just cut a piece of craft card that I'm going to pop inside. Now, this is not a necessary step, When I've made these smaller, and my background piece has been a piece of craft card, this is much thicker. This is only about half of the weight. So bearing in mind it's going to be home decor and it's hopefully going to get put up on the wall somewhere, I just want to strengthen that back piece. And I've left room for these pieces to stick so that we don't end up with so much bulk again. And I actually arrived at a piece that measured 7 3/4 by 6 3/4. So again, I'm going to stay with that construction glue here. It all adds to the strength of your finished piece. Pop that on the back here and then centre that the best you can. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect because we're going to cover it up. It is literally just to strengthen that back piece of card. And like I say, if you've got a piece of card on the back of your frame that is stronger, you can actually omit this step. So that one's going in the centre here. Make sure I've not got any spare glue knocking about there. And then what I want to do is I want to have, if you can just see in this one here, there's a very, very tiny cream frame in the background to echo the cream on the tags that we made in the last video. So this piece is actually a little bit bigger. I want this to cover most of that gap that's left. So I'm at 8 1/4 by 9 1/4 this time. And again, I'm just going to use my tape runner on this one. And the reason being is, again, this is quite a thin cardstock and I don't want that glue, although there won't be much of this showing, I don't want that glue to show through my cardstock. So my tape runner is nice and strong. And this is actually going to be, in effect, the background piece of the frame. So we'll put some nice adhesive on there. And we'll get this one stuck again. I'm just centering it all by eye. It's about the same size as the gap, roughly. So again, I'm not too worried whether it's straight or whether it is dead center, because these are going to overlap the edge of it anyway. So all this is tucked inside. And we'll get that one stuck in as well. And then it's time to start closing up the details here. So what I'm going to do is start on the long side again. And the first step is to take off the liner from my red line tape here. And I'm also going to add the glue over the top, purely because the minute this touches here, it's going to grab. Just by adding a little bit of the wet glue, it just gives me that second or two to get it in the right place. And then what we want to do is we want to close 2 sections. Okay, so I've actually got my first 5/8 section and one of the sides at 3/4, and then I'm going to fold it on that external edge and lay it flat like so. It wants to go completely flat, this one, and then give it a good press. And this is where I usually fetch something a bit heavier to just keep on there for while I work on the other side. And we're going to do the same at this side. So you can see the whole thing is very repetitive. And like I say, once you get the hang of how it works, you can accommodate pretty much any sizings on this. And hopefully in the future, I will come back and revisit this, and we'll actually do this in different sizes so that we've got them on the channel. So again, just to help it, I'm going to go with 2 sections pressed flat. I'm going to fold it over in half. And then make sure that this bit, it's important that this bit lies flat. Okay, like so. And then what I'll do is I'll bring that one over to that side for a second. Now don't be tempted to mess with this until that glue has actually dried properly. We do need to make sure that that glue has set before we start wriggling things about. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to bring these edges in to tuck around. So if I just check this one carefully, and by having that red line tape, it does allow that glue to seal, and it should fold out flat the other way as well. So you can see now we've got the 3/4 inch is going to be the side, the 1 1/4 inch, and then it goes back down 3/4 of an inch, and we've got that lovely nice solid side on here. And then the same at this side. So just pop that back to one side and just double test it and make sure that it's stuck well. And then fold it back flat the other way to make sure it's all in place. And then again, if you just bring it up to make those two side pieces, and then these are very, very neatly just going to fit in the edges like so. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one, we need a little bit of extra glue, and I'm actually just going to bring in my tacky glue because I wanted the fine tip applicator. So step number one is to take away the red liner tape. Step number two, we're going to add a little bit of that wet glue again to help with the seal and the wriggle room. And then this is going to overlap the bottom corner of here. So just on that inside corner here, I'm going to add a little bit of my tacky glue. So I'm just eyeballing that angle and just make sure you can see that there. Okay. Now this time we can't lay it flat because these are already in place. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that all my folds are in place. And what you want to do is make sure that it's at a 90-degree angle here. And it does all sort of click into place. You just want to make sure that you've got a nice flat edge here. Any of this glue here will dry clear, so I'm not too worried about it. But that's going to catch those miters in the corner here. We're going to put some pattern paper over the top of this. So if they don't quite meet properly, don't stress about it. Everything can be worked around. I'm just going to hold that in place for a second or two until that tacky glue grabs. And then we've got one of our top or bottom in place. Flip it round and we're going to do the same again. So remove that liner first of all. It's always one piece. There we go. Decided to protest. I'm going to use my all-purpose glue on here. And the only reason I've switched to the tacky glue is just for that fine precision applicator here. I can actually get it. It doesn't come out quite as fast as what the tacky glue does, so I can be a little bit more accurate in where I want that to go. Okay. And then again, make sure that this one is going to go right underneath, and you can actually push the two corners together. Push these two corners together and you should get that nice return on the bottom here. And don't push it in like I just did there. It should go straight down at that 90-degree angle. And again, I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure for that tacky glue to grab on the corners there. And you can see that is pretty much our frame. And as I say, you can adapt these measurements. If, for example, we made these 8 inches long each and an inch wide all the way round, you'd have a 6 by 6 space in the middle. So it's really easy to adapt and make a frame pretty much for any size. You could have a really skinny little, you know, 1/2 inch frame round it. You could have one that was much deeper here. So all these dimensions can be changed and adapted to whatever it is you want to display in the middle. But we've got one very tough looking frame there, ready to do to start decorating. So again, I've got some of these pieces prepared ready, and I've actually done some strips to go down the sides and across the top here. So 2 slightly longer than the other again. I've got the 10.5 inch side. I've just come a fraction smaller, so I'll have come down to 10.25 here, and then this width was 1.25 and I've come down to 1. So I've got cream card on the back, edged with the vintage photo ink again, just to echo what we did with the tag. And then I've added the pink on top, and I've used the Victorian velvet ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of the long sides, and again I'm staying with that all-purpose glue to add strength, give me time to wriggle it into place, and also this soaks nicely into the craft card, which is a little bit fibrous. And these are going to go straight down the middle, around about the same distance from each edge there and get that one in place. Oops. So I'm looking down here, looking down the outside edge, and I'm just checking either end there. And then I'm going to flip it round and do the same on this side. And then the two top and bottom, we're going to do something slightly different with to create those mitered corners. Now, there's several ways to do this. I've just gone for one that is relatively easy, and I'll explain what I've done. Now, you can miter these corners as well to make a true frame rather than I'm going to overlap the top and bottom. And the reason I do that is to get a really nice finish. I usually end up with one of them not quite cutting it straight, and when you bring in the return, it doesn't meet here in the corner. By doing it this way, we're going to get a really nice finish on it. So I'm going to grab my ruler and my pencil. Now, you don't have to do this step. Again, you could just lay these straight over the top and have that detail across. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these corners off to create that mitre on them again. Okay, so I just need to grab my pink. I think we'll go with the pink tool there just for applying a bit of ink. So I'm going to lay this one in position here, and I'm going to match up both of those bottom corners. So this one's slightly shorter. My box was 9.5 inches wide, so I'll have come to 9 1/4, again by that 1 inch on the cream, and then just an 1/8 of an inch smaller for the pattern piece. But once I've got these corners matched up perfectly here and here, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to come from that very outside corner just here into where they meet in the middle, and just draw myself a line here. And then I'm going to do the same at this side, making sure that everything stayed in place. I'm going to do the same. So from that outside bottom corner to your inside corner there. And then we can actually snip those pieces off along. And I tend to snip the pencil line away to save me rubbing anything out. Like so. And the same at this side. Like so. And then I'm just going to bring in a little bit of that pink ink just to tidy up that cut edge. And then this will go on here, and you've got that beautiful mitered corner that follows the line of the corner that we made on the box. So again, there is a little bit of overlap in the corner, but I don't have a problem with that. And as I say, I find this the best way. In the past, I've done this to both corners. I've done the same with this one, and sometimes it doesn't quite marry up and I end up with a gap in it. So I prefer to just do it this way, and you get that perfect finish on there. And then we'll let that one dry, and then I'm going to spin it round and I'm going to do the same at the top. So I've got this one again, line up those corners so that they match up perfectly. Bring in your pencil and ruler again and just draw that line in, and then the same, holding everything in place so that it's still in the right position there. And I'm going to do the same at this side here. Okay, so that's all I need that bit for. And again, I'm going to snip those off, snip that pencil line away, just because I'm lazy and it saves me getting the eraser out there. And I'm going to put the ink over the top of it anyway, so it would disguise it if there did happen to be a little bit left. And again, just tidy them up. And then this one's going to sit on there. So I'm using that same glue now just to strengthen everything, give me a really nice finish. And again, we can line this one up with the corner, this one up with the corner, and you've got that perfect frame on there. There we go. So we'll let that dry off. So the one that's already started drying, I've got a little decorative element to go up on the top. This is going to be the top of the box, and I've just got a little sticker here, and I thought that was perfect to go at the top of here. So what I'm going to do is just measure along this outside edge. This was 9.5, so So if I just push it along a bit, I want to find the center point. So I'm just going to pop myself a little tiny dot there. And that's where the center of my ribbon is going to go. So the hardest part of these, in my opinion, is actually getting the backing off here. There we go. And I'm just going to take one side to the center so that I don't get too much sticky exposed. And then I'm going to put that little bow over that center point there. So about there. A little bit fiddly, but I think it's worth it in the end. And then we've got that lovely cascade of ribbon. I just went through my stash of stickers and I thought, yeah, that's the perfect colour and the perfect size to just add that little bit of detail up at the top there. So you can see that coming together nicely. Now, again, this is purely up to you as to what you put inside. I'm going to be sort of relatively quick with this bit because I just want to add a little bit of something inside here to create some effect. So this piece measures 7 3/4 by 6 3/4. I wanted to see just a fraction of that cream around the edge of it to echo what we did with the tag. And I've gone round the bulk of it. I've just got one side left to do with my little distressing tool. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can do this with the open edge of your scissors. It does exactly the same, just to rough up that edge. And it just adds to the theme, that shabby chic. There we go. Get rid of those bits off here. And then I'm just going to bring that ink back in. And what I want to do is pop, I'm deliberately going to pop a little tear in the top. It's only about just over 1/2 inch. And I've done the same down the side here as well. And then I'm just going to treat the whole outside of this, because on this particular colour layer on our tag, we did add that brown ink. So I'm just marrying it up because I specifically made the frame for the tags. I wanted to have some correlation with the design I made for the tags against the design for my embellishments on the frame. So there we go. Oh, I'll leave that out for a second. Let's just get rid of all the bits there. And then what I'm actually going to do is take my little pokey tool here, and where I've actually torn this bit, I want to just curl. And I find this an excellent tool. Just be careful that you don't stab yourself with it, which I've done many occasions. And you can actually teach that paper where you want it to go. And I'm going to do the same on here. Like, ooh, there we go. Just giving it that sort of instruction as to what you want it to do. And I'm also going to bring a little bit of that ink over the white there, so that there's no white bits exposed on the paper there. There we go. And then in my little pot, I've got some bits and pieces again, and I want to take, I've got a little tiny bit of lace here that's got some flowers on it. If I pop it that way, you can see the flowers. And I'm going to cut that in half here, like so. And I've got my hot glue on to the side of me here. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit at the bottom here. And this is all just extra detail. And I'm going to stick this behind so that the flower just peeps out through that little gap that we've made here. Same with this one. A little bit of glue on here. And I'm going to do the same. Oops, thought I'd stuck it to my desk then. In this one here, just so that that little bit of lace sticks in the gap there. Again, just a bit of added detail. You know, you don't have to add that in if you don't have bits of lace. It could be a die cut or something like that. And again, I think I did stick it to the desk, but we'll not worry about that too much. She says, trying to get it off. And then across again, like I did with the tags, I'm bringing an element that's going to go across that detail. So I'm just going to have a look at this one and see how high up I went. It was probably about there. So it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Before I stick that down, I've got some elements again. If I bring the tags back in, you can see where I've got these elements from. We actually use washi tape to go horizontal on the tag. I've got the book paper coming down the side, and then I've got some little snippets of ephemera and things just popping out from underneath it. So I'm going to do the same with this. So I've got a little bit of tickets and a little bit here to go on this one before we actually put that cross piece on. So what I'm going to do is bring in the tacky glue back. I'm just going to run a bead down the edge of the ticket, and I want that one to go down the edge of here, and then this one's going to go, and just for ease I'm just going to bring in a couple of runs of my tape runner there. This one's going to go down this side here, like so, and then I've got the piece to go across here, which I'll just need to snip this edge, and then I'm going to bring this bit just so that it tucks underneath. So I've just stuck 3 big pieces together, little bits of book paper, snippets that are left off tickets that I've used on other projects and things like that. They all go back in the little bit box, and this is a great use for them. So again, that one's just going to tuck, and what I want to do is use the tag as a guideline, because I want to see some of this popping out of the side here and some of it, so probably around about there, like so. And then we can run this bit across the middle here. So I've not done too much in the back of it here, because obviously the tags are going to cover a fair bit of it up, and then I'm just going to trim that edge off. Again, that bit goes back in the pot for future use, and then just to add a bit of ink to tone those edges in, and we've got our piece that's just about finished to go in the back there. Okay, so I'm going to go back again, flitting backwards and forwards with the glues. I've got a nice area of paper and card there, so this is going to go on with the all-purpose again. Get a nice good finish in the back of that frame, and I'm just going to center that, and again you've got room to move it around with that wet glue there. So I'm just going to center that in there with that little bit of cream frame showing as well. Give it a press down, and then the final touch is a bit of decoration on the frame and 1 or 2 little extra pieces. So I've got another ephemera piece here that's got the clock on, which again ties in with the tag. I use one of my alphabet sets, which I have many of, just to cut out the wording dream here. I've got the same die cut flowers as what we used on the tag, with a leaf from that same set, and then I've got a little tiny sentiment, again same range as what I used on the actual tag. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to bring that tag back into place so that I can see the placement, because I want to put this in here like so. Okay, eventually that's going to be fastened in like it is there. All right, so I've just got 1 or 2 little bits and pieces to pop in now just to finish it off. So I've got the flowers are going to go in here, so I'm going to go sort of 1, and the middle sized one in here, and then I've got one of those leaves. We'll just give that a little bit of texture again, and this is the same die cut set that I used on the tag, just so that they match. That one's just going to tuck under the edge. The tiny little flower we're going to offset from this corner up to this corner. Pop that one up there. My sentiment is going to go inside there as well. And this is the same sentiment strips. So I've got Create Art, and then I've got Be Your Best on this one. So again, I just want to tuck that underneath the edge of there, so that we can see it alongside the tag. This one is going to go on the bottom corner here, so I just want some glue around that bottom edge. On here. Make sure my clock's nice and straight there. And then I'm just going to apply those letters on the bottom there, like so. So I would use my glue and just stick those across the bottom to make the word dream. So you can see there where we've got all that detail. So if I bring in now the one that I'd finished, of course it has to have some gems on. So all I've done different is just add some on the frame here. And again, with that tag in position, I just transfer it into that one here. Just pop that one up out of the way for a second. You can see I've got these again going cascading up through the tag up to the other side. I added one in the center of the bow at the top, and that's actually my finished project. So that's our deconstructed frame. My finished project is 10.5 by 9.5, but that was purely decided by the size of the tags that we made in the previous video. You could put anything in here. If those of you that like making your foam flowers, that would actually look great as a design in here. You could have a photograph inside it. So many different ways to use it, and so substantial. It really is quite a tough piece when it goes together. So what I'm going to do off camera is actually decide whereabouts I want the tags. I might actually pop them up on some foam so that there's a little bit of dimension, and then it will cast some shadow into the back of the frame as well. Make sure that I've got them secure, and then I'm hoping to have this displayed in my craft room when it's all finished. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't subscribed just yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. It does all help move the channel forward for me, and I appreciate every single one of those subscriptions. It's gone much faster than I anticipated, and I'm absolutely loving my time at YouTube so far. So I will see you guys very soon, and I'll be back with my next video shortly. Bye for now.